Hey y'all, it's your girl Aaron, and today I wanted to talk a bit more about cryptocurrencies and NFT. There's quite a few things I could say, so I'm not going to say it all in this one video because I don't want to cram too much stuff into one video. But yeah, I did get like quite a lot of feedback from the last video, which is kind of what I want to go over some of that in this video. And so basically the overall topic for this video is going to be whether you can use blockchain or cryptocurrency for good. I've got notes, so if I keep looking down, it's because I'm like reading from there. So one of the points people like to make in response to my last video was about different kinds of coins and different kinds of blockchains, and all the ones that weren't computationally difficult ended up being proof of stake. And so I want to talk about that in another video. And so I'll talk about kind of like the economics and the market psychology and proof of stake in another video. So yeah, so then for this video, I wanted to go over, is there usefulness that can come out of like blockchain technology or crypto in general, etc. And so obviously when we're talking about things being good, you got to weigh it up, and there's always a cost. Like at the moment, 0.6% of the total electricity consumption in the world is done for crypto mining, and data centers is like 1%, and some of those data centers are contributing to that amount of crypto. So, but if you think of it like data centers, like using 1% of the Earth's total energy consumption, that's like the entire internet, like every social media, like every e-commerce site, like all of that stuff, like YouTube, all of that's running on data centers. So all of that comes up to 1%, and crypto comes up to 0.6%. So it's almost like we're paying for two internet's worth of electricity by having crypto around. For what benefit? So what good can there be that can make such a thing a good idea? um, so one of the things some people have said is that people are using crypto to make money and to like get themselves out of poverty and stuff like that. So how can I say like it's a scam if they're making money and stuff like that? Well, if you get in early enough on a pyramid scheme, you can make money. Okay, so if there's a bubble, so I call it a scam because it's a bubble that people are claiming isn't a bubble. So if there's a bubble, you will continue making money in that bubble right up until the point that it bursts. It hits the top peak of its value, and then confidence in that asset disappears, and people don't think it's worth much or anything anymore. And then, the price falls, and if you still have ownership in it, then you're going to lose potentially all of that, money you put into it. So, um, if you make sure that you get out before the bubble bursts, and we don't know when that's going to happen. That could be tomorrow, like, probably not, but it could. You don't know when the market is going to lose confidence, and I'll talk about the market more in another video, but you don't know when the crash will come, what will trigger it. You know, People who have billions of dollars invested in Bitcoin, they are doing it because they want return on that, among other things. But if they see better returns in a different asset, then there's no reason for them to stay there. Or if they determine the risk to be too high, they might even transfer to something that'll give them less return just because they don't want to have so much risk. And the perception of how much risk there is unpredictable. We don't know how much confidence people will have in it from day to day. If it were up to me, people would lose confidence in it tomorrow. But you might still be able to make money, and if you do, then good for you. But just don't, you know, think it's gonna last forever. Um, Then on the topic of NFTs, people were saying that it helps artists or content creators to monetize their work. So having a platform that can cryptographically sign a digital asset so that there is proof of ownership there, and that can be valuable, yes, but that doesn't need to be achieved via blockchain. And so I don't think using blockchain is actually a good solution to that. People have said that you can embed the asset itself into the non-fungible token, into the blockchain. Now, if you look at what's currently happening, they are embedding a JSON which has a URL to the digital asset. So it's not being done right now, basically. Every NFT, if you've bought an NFT, you've probably just bought the JSON with the URL pointing to the NFT, which is being hosted by some other company that could potentially go bankrupt and stop hosting that image or asset or whatever it is, and then your NFT points to a dead link, and you've proved you owned a dead link, basically. So that's concerning. If it was a platform like Facebook or Google or Microsoft, there would be like a class action lawsuit against them if they suddenly, like, the links to all your assets that they'd signed went away, because there's like some kind of accountability there. But with blockchain, people claim it's a positive thing, but the lack of accountability, the fact that it's completely private and not going through the traditional channels where there's things like laws and government that can get involved, well, that actually poses a risk, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong with this. Like, someone can have claim to own the same digital assets as you. How do you know who the real owner is? The people who issued the certificate or whatever, but what's going to happen if, say, a company goes bust? Then that URL that all these NFTs are pointing to, someone could buy that URL and point to whatever other image they want or whatever. And so, as a solution to that problem, I don't think it's a very good idea at all. Not to mention that artists have already had their artwork stolen and then sold as NFTs without their permission. Yeah, so the whole concept of trying to have a record of ownership that isn't linked to any kind of jurisdiction or government or anything like that, but is totally like independent, like that is basically just free market thinking. Okay, so someone else was mentioning that if you have cryptocurrency and your government fails, and so like the one example is Zimbabwe, where there was hyperinflation, and what used to cost, say, like one Zimbabwean dollar ended up costing like $1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. And that's called hyperinflation when that happens. And so people are saying that if you had cryptocurrency, if the government failed and that happened, your cryptocurrency would have the same value it had before. You wouldn't have lost all of your money. And so to that, I would say that the chances of your government failing is way less than the chances of any particular cryptocurrency failing, or even crypto in general. Like, governments don't fail like really often, and when they do, if you are keeping yourself up with what's happening, you'll see it coming. And so if you have huge amounts of cash and you see that the government's failing, you can move that to a different currency or buy some other asset. Like, you're not locked into it. You don't really have to go into crypto for that. And the thing is, like, if you were to go into a situation where the government did fail, mutual aid is going to help you way more than having some cryptocurrency. Because, first of all, not everyone's going to have crypto, So are you suggesting that it should be replace normal currency altogether? Because in that case, then that is again free market, like far right, Ayn Rand type philosophy, and I just am against that. I don't think it helps you very much. Otherwise, some people will and some won't. So now those who do, well, good for you, but those who don't, sucks for you. That doesn't sound like a great way to go through a failing government to me. So would you then be saying, no, you can reestablish your economy using the crypto. So that is a positive endorsement of capitalism, and you want even a failing of a government to have capitalism be secured beyond that, and not take that as an opportunity to try and move away from it, because mutual aid would help you way more than having crypto in such a condition. So if you spent your time building up a mutual aid network in your community, instead of spending your time on investing in crypto and mining it and stuff like that, then if the government does fail, that mutual aid helps you way, way more. And then you don't actually even need money then. You can all just help each other out. And so if you really want to be doing what's good for, for people, if you really want something that'll be good, then you should be investing in building something like a mutual aid network that will retain value to you in a failed state scenario way more than crypto, where you would still need internet access and electricity even for it to matter, which may not even be the case when your government fails. So I think that is basically just something people say to make it sound like a good idea, when you think about it, it's not, or it's a good idea for capitalists, but not for the people that it's supposed to be helping. So people say, well, you can use it for mutual aid, but this is different. They're saying, like, right now, with not in a failed government state, but just in regular society, you can use it for mutual aid. So sending someone money, I guess, or they say like keeping a ledger or whatever, but it's like there's lots of platforms that you can do mutual aid on. Like Twitter and Facebook are platforms designed for profit, but people help each other through those platforms anyway. So just because you can use a platform for mutual aid doesn't mean that platform is a good idea and designed for doing mutual aid. Doesn't mean that there isn't something better that can achieve it. And a distributed ledger amongst people who are in mutual aid, amongst people who trust each other, a distributed ledger doesn't need blockchain at all. Now, somebody also mentioned to me CureCoin. They were saying that, well, not all coin computation is meaningless, because what about CureCoin, where you are computing protein folding, which is what I suggested. But if you look into it, what happens is they have a normal coin. You'd mine it the way you would normally mine coins, like it's still doing that computation, but they pre-mined a whole bunch of coins, and then when you compute the protein fold, you get rewarded from one of the pre-mined coins, or people who are continuing to mine donating coins to the pool. So it is rewarding, it's maintaining a blockchain and then using that and donations from it to reward computing. It's not that you are computing useful information as proof of work. You've got some people doing proof of work, some people doing real computation, and then the proof of work people are sponsoring the ones doing the real computation. So you're just still doing that first bit of proof of work that is calculating meaningless information and just as much, if not more, of it than the real computation. So it's kind of just a gimmick, to make people feel better about crypto, I think. But to summarize, when it comes to like blockchain and stuff like that, I think because it is so like elegant technically, like the fact that it can work and all it takes is a whole lot of computing power, but you get this like sort of secure thing, it's like, wow, it's kind of like science going too far. Like, just because we can doesn't mean that we should. Yes, wow, it does, have the ability to perhaps be useful, but it's like in contrast to something that is kind of broken, like the existing system, like with the government and stuff like that, and fiat currency and stuff. It's kind of broken, but you're streamlining it into a way where, it is completely up to corporations or rich people to have the biggest say, because now you're moving away from something that is government influenced. And that is, in my opinion, like a far right type of philosophy or stance to take, because while the government isn't great and the government is a source of a lot of problems, there is still some way of influencing what happens at the government level, even if it's just slowing things down. Now, I'm not saying it's ideal model to have a government. I think we should move to a stateless and capitalist free society. But I don't think we should take the state out of the picture before we take capitalism out of the picture. Because if you still have capitalism but you don't have the state, just think of it. If you have everything became unregulated, no regulations, that's the world crypto is moving towards. If crypto became replaced real money, it would mean that corporations and the people who own like tons and tons of coin mines or bought the coins or whatever, or we have money to invest in it, those would be the people who would have the most say deciding the future of the coin. If you had a vote on should we just dismantle the coin entirely, it would get voted no, because inequality results in, even if a majority of people were being harmed by the coin staying alive, the rich people would still own so many more coins than all of them that they would just vote for it to stay alive. Like, yes, it's possible that we will arrive at an implementation of blockchain that won't be a total bubble, that won't be a total scam. It will just be a further integration of capitalism and free market thinking into society. And that's not necessarily a good thing. But we don't even have that good implementation yet. Now, if that implementation had something like the ability for decentralized, non-hierarchical government where, each person, regardless of how many coins they had, like now we're talking about something that may actually be useful. But in that case, if you're going to actually implement all of that stuff, why do you still have it tied to a crypto or a blockchain? Why not make it based on mutual aid? Why not have it based on unionizing with people around you, forming community, forming a network of people you trust. And then if you need a distributed ledger, you just distribute it to the people you trust. You don't need to have arbitrarily difficult random hashes calculated just to make sure nobody's lying. Just don't let liars on your network. But that is a social solution. That requires people to stop being competitive with each other and start cooperating. So you really need to decide which side you're on, in a sense. Like, do you want socialism? Do you want a world that is not tied to money at all, but is like there's social ownership of the means of production where, yes, you may have a house or whatever that you live in, but that's it. Like, you don't get it to control or own anything other than that. The rest of it is people share in the ownership of it. If many people are working at the same business, then they each get equal say in the running of that business. But the business itself is only existing to meet people's needs, not to make money, because you're not using money. You're just using mutual aid. You're like, if there's a need that I can meet, I will meet that need. Because if we all do that, then when I have a need, someone else will meet my need. And it's not about give and take. It's like you help out regardless, and then when you're in need, you ask without feeling guilty. That is a way more optimized way of running the economy. It takes out all the economic calculations other than supply and demand. So all you have to do as a productive unit is make sure you are keeping your stock levels in a reasonable amount. Like, if nobody's consuming your product, you make less. If you're running out of stock, you make more. It can be self-regulating, but not having to worry about profitability. Just worry about how much practically necessary stuff do I need. Okay, let me go and source it, and then what can I offer? And you network that together into an economy of doing everything we can do now, but without having a transaction every time. And if something isn't worth doing unless you get a reward, then it doesn't get done at all. And that's how we optimize for social need. So that's the side where I would say is good, And then the side of crypto and blockchain, that is trying to further transactionalize our lives. That is trying to make ownership some even more prevalent and prominent thing, that now you can have ownership even without the government signing it, or as if ownership is a good thing. Yeah, people shouldn't take my stuff, but if it's free, if copying it's free, that's not taking. So if we're talking about digital assets, like people should take your stuff, like but you shouldn't have to pay bills, you shouldn't have rent and stuff, so you shouldn't need to make money, so it shouldn't impact you. So like we need to figure out for ourselves, I guess, whether we want to go down a road where we push for mutual aid and helping each other out in cooperation for free, or do we want to go down a road of everything becomes a transaction, everything has to have, some profit in it. You don't do anything unless there's economic incentive for you to do it. Like, because that's where that ends up going. When, NFTs, like supposedly great for being able to monetize digital assets, like digital assets shouldn't be monetized anyway. Digital assets, it's digital, it can be copied for free. So it's like capitalism is further integrating itself into people's brains where they believe wholeheartedly that even though there's no physical cost to duplicating something, that there should be a cost to it because of ownership, you know, and that's capitalist thinking. So, in my opinion, no, you can't use blockchain for good because by using blockchain, you're choosing to do things in basically the most innovatively capitalist way we have around. It's capitalist's bleeding edge technology, whereas, socialism's bleeding edge technology is so far lagging because it's not being invested in by rich people, but people are doing what they can to build mutual aid networks. Maybe that's why people are so attracted to it because they see this amazing technology from the right and they're just really interested in amazing technology and it sways them. And maybe we do need amazing technology on the left that can sway people that way too, especially people that aren't thinking through the consequences of, what emerges from the platforms you use and stuff. But I feel like there isn't a whole lot of people on board for getting amazing socialist software because I've been wanting to do that kind of programming for a while, but there's just so yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be it for this video.